Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Today we're going to talk about a number of headlines directly and indirectly related to Bible prophecy. So let's dive right in. The first one I want to focus on is from Zero Hedge. It says, Hezbollah threatens to strike Israeli gas production facilities. A dispute between Lebanon and Israel over offshore drilling rights has devolved into threats against Israeli natural gas facilities, leveled by the leader of Lebanese political and militant group Hezbollah. All fields are under threat. No Israeli target at sea or on land is out of the reach of the resistance precision missiles, said Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah in a Tuesday night interview. While Israel and Lebanon have no diplomatic relations and are officially at war ever since Israel's 1948 inception, the U.S. government has been brokering indirect talks over the maritime border dispute for nearly 2 years. At stake, a share of many billions of dollars in revenue from a potentially gas-rich area in the eastern Mediterranean off the coast of the two countries. Now, guys, This is very significant. Hezbollah has hundreds of thousands of missiles pointed at Israel and capable of striking Israel at a moment's notice. They have hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles. If they chose to unleash all of that or most of that, it could overwhelm parts of the Iron Dome missile defense system that Israel has. Some of that could get through and it could cause some severe damage. So this is a big threat. The IDF has increased its defenses in this area. They are on heightened alert. And so this is something to keep in mind. And what I want to scroll down in this story because I think there's a key piece in here that we have to notice. It says, this sentence right here, offshore gas projects figure heavily in Israel's aspirations to become a major supplier of natural gas to Europe. So think about that for a moment. If these natural gas projects continue to produce what it's believed they can produce, and there are plans to put in a pipeline to Europe from these Israeli gas fields, that would undermine Vladimir Putin's current position as the number one natural gas supplier to Europe, and it would take away a lot of the leverage that he's exacting over that continent right now. And so this puts Israel's interest in direct opposition to Russia's interest. Why is that important? Well, Ezekiel 38:39 tells us that Russia will be the leader of the Gog of Magog coalition that will invade Israel in the last days, and it specifically says that the leader of that coalition will have a hook put in his jaw and he will be drawn away from what he is doing down into the land of Israel, and it says that his reason is to take plunder, right? Ultimately, well, there's our dog barking right there. But ultimately, the purpose is to take plunder. So natural gas would be a reason to take plunder in Israel. A couple of other reminders this article notes is Hezbollah is regarded as a proxy of Israel's enemy, Iran. So Hezbollah is funded by Iran. They are supported by Iran in just about every way. When you think Hezbollah, you might as well think Iran, because I doubt that they're doing anything without the bidding of Iran. And Hezbollah gives Iran this advantage in that they can strike Israel through Hezbollah and then claim in the international arena, it wasn't us, we didn't do it, it was Hezbollah, when in reality it was Iran, so they can deflect and divert that attention away. This also notes Hezbollah is strongly allied with the Assad regime in Syria, and Syria is backed by Russia. And then, of course, Russia and Iran recently signed a deal just in the last couple of weeks, a $40 billion development agreement to develop natural gas fields off the coast of Iran. So, again, Iran has this interest in making sure that natural gas is not supplied to Europe, that prices internationally don't come down. because this is all about, it's about plunder in many ways, definitely in Russia's eyes, but with Iran, they are the arch enemy of Israel and they want to destroy Israel. So there's a lot of factors in play here. This may end up playing in a role in the Ezekiel 38-39 attack, so we want to keep an eye on that. Now on to Taiwan and China. This also is from Zero Hedge. It says White House orders U.S. carrier strike group to stay near Taiwan longer than planned, says China is overreacting. The United States says it's watching ongoing Chinese military drills around Taiwan very closely, while condemning the latest series of ballistic missiles fired over the island as a severe provocation and escalation. The White House has ordered the Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group to stay in the area. U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said in statements to MSNBC Thursday, "We've been watching this very closely. It's concerning. It's not just concerning to us, but it's concerning, of course, to the people of Taiwan. It's concerning to our allies in the region, especially Japan." So I think what's interesting about this article, if you scroll down later, we end up with this map right here. So this map, these red areas here, A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, show where China is running these live drill exercises. And if you notice, it completely surrounds Taiwan. So the question I would have is, how long are these live fire drills going to go on? Will they go on 5 days as they state? Or will that 5 days turn into 10, 20, 30? And what will happen? Are these just going to be drills, or are they going to stop any maritime traffic in and out of Taiwan? What's going to happen to the airspace? Is that going to be restricted? So this could stop trade with Taiwan. This could be the early stage of a siege warfare tactic where they're trying to deplete resources from Taiwan, where they're trying to wear them down before an attack. We really don't know. It's something that we definitely need to keep our eyes on, because this is of strategic importance to the world and to the world supply chain, not just from a freedom and liberty standpoint for Taiwan, but for really a whole host of reasons for the supply chain to the U.S. military and its allies, but also the global economy. So let's move back on to the economy, and we will talk about the European energy situation. So if we pull up this article from Yahoo Finance, it says, France to curb nuclear output as Europe's energy crisis worsens. And it says, Electricité de France SA said it's likely to extend cuts to nuclear generation as scorching weather pushes up river temperatures, bringing the energy crisis in the European Union's second largest economy into sharp focus. Now, these nuclear facilities require cool river water in order to cool the plants. So when they have this heat wave come through Europe, it's raising the temperature of the river water to the point where it can't be used to cool the nuclear plant. So the nuclear plant can't operate at full capacity or at the capacity that it was before, which means less electricity is coming from the nuclear plant, which means that electricity has to be made up for somewhere else. And in this case, they're talking about more natural gas is being used. So that's gas that would go into the storage for the winter to get Europe through the winter, and it's not going to be there. We move on to Spain. This article here talks about, this is also from Zero Hedge, Spain bans air conditioning dropping below 80 degrees Fahrenheit and threatens massive fines. Citing a real risk of a natural gas shortage during the coming winter, the Spanish government has decreed that all shops, department stores, cinemas, hotels, and public buildings cannot have air conditioning set below 27 degrees Celsius, that's just below 81 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer, or heating above 19 degrees Celsius in the winter, that's 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Additionally, the lights in shop windows must be turned off at 10, and access doors to the premises must close automatically to ensure air doesn't get out. Businesses have been given 7 days to adjust to the new measures, which will be in force until November 2023. Ominously, Euronews reports that the action is extended as a recommendation to Spanish households, meaning it could one day become mandatory. I believe that timeline in November 2023 is going to be extended out at some point in the future, and this recommendation to Spanish households is going to become a requirement as we move into the autumn and winter months. As the temperatures go down in Spain, they're going to need to curtail their energy usage in order to have enough in storage throughout the continent to get through winter without people freezing to death and without their industries completely shutting down. Interestingly, you go to the end of this article and they say the penalties will range from up to 60,000 euros for minor offenses to a maximum of 600,000 euros for serious violations, Spanish newspaper El Mundo reported on Tuesday. We cannot afford to lose even a single kilowatt hour, explained Spain's third vice president, Teresa Ribera. So this shows the severity of the situation. This isn't just Germany. It's not simply a matter of which countries are most reliant on Russian natural gas flowing, but it's a European situation. It's a continent-wide problem. Really, it's a global problem, because any country, a major economy like Germany, being cut off from this type of energy, it has to be made up for somewhere else. And when energy is taken away at the margin, it has to be replaced from somewhere else. So we're seeing, natural gas prices in the United States went up because they were sending liquefied natural gas over to Europe. So it spiked prices over here. Then they had an explosion, which I don't think was a coincidence, at an LNG export facility in Texas. That was probably a cyber attack by Russia. And that spiked the prices in Europe, but made them go down in the United States because that natural gas had to stay in the United States. That facility may come back up soon. And so this is a global issue with the energy, but particularly in Europe. And I think this article sums up the situation rather perfectly. It says drought and heat drive European electricity prices to all-time highs. And this article shows us that the situation's getting worse because of the drought as well. Drought and heat have pushed European benchmark electricity prices to all-time highs in August. As a result, countries are relying even more on Russian gas to meet increased power demand instead of storing it for the coming winter season, as recently agreed in Brussels. We just mentioned that. It says Germany, 1 year forward baseload electricity surges above 400 euros per megawatt hour for the first time ever. We are truly into crunching territory for the country's energy-intensive manufacturing industry, energy and commodities columnist at Bloomberg, Javier Blas, said. The current price is 1,000% higher than the 41.1 euro per megawatt hour 2010 to 2020 average. So 1,000% spike in energy prices. What does that do to energy? What does that do to household budgets? What does it do to industry that is reliant on that energy to keep the European economy moving? So we read on through this. We read, while grain shipments from Ukraine are straining the rail network, low water levels are hampering inland shipping through rivers, forcing ships to carry only half their capacity. German energy utility NBW said coal shipments have already been affected by low water levels on the Rhine River, the most important shipping lane in Europe and one of the most important in the world. I read in another article where there's one point in the Rhine River where it's only 1.5 feet deep right now. 1.5 feet. I mean, how do you move shipping traffic over water that's 1.5 feet deep? You can't. They're not far away from not being able to use the river at all. It says, All rivers across Central Europe are at unusually low levels, but Rhine, crucial for shipping of goods within the continent, is set to fall perilously close to the point at which it would effectively close, putting the trade of huge quantities of goods at risk as the continent seeks to stave off an economic crisis. According to Germany's Coal Importers Association, coal transport bottlenecks are expected to increase, especially from September, when monthly import volumes are expected to rise significantly. So at the precise time that coal is needed, as we're headed into the fall and into the winter months, they may not have the ability to transport this. Falling water levels are exacerbating the European energy crisis, Bloss noted on July 13th. As households and businesses turn on their air conditioners, electricity demand has jumped and wholesale power prices have surged. But far more concerning and far less discussed is the drought spreading from Germany to Portugal that has the potential to worsen the energy crisis for a lot longer than the current hot spell. So guys, as we move into the winter months, this looks to be getting worse, and they talk about economic crisis in this article. I'd say the potential is there for an economic collapse. You cannot have prices spike 1,000%, and that's assuming that what you need is even available from an energy input standpoint. You can't have that happen and have the economy continue to be healthy. Something's got to give. Either you've got to print currency and lead yourself into a hyperinflation, or households have to declare bankruptcy because they can't afford this, or you provide it to the households at the expense of industry, and then the industries go bankrupt and start laying people off, and they aren't producing what they need to produce. So this is dire. This is, I think, ultimately going to lead us into a global depression. On that note, we look at this article from The Sun. It says, worried Brits expect cost of living crisis to spark crime wave, deaths, and riots. Worried Brits expect the brutal cost of living crisis to spark a crime wave, deaths, and riots, a shock poll reveals. Families fear rocketing bills will plunge the country into misery and unrest. Some 70% of the public expect many to refuse to pay energy bills, and there's actually a growing movement of people around the world to not pay energy bills. So, and particularly in the UK, there's one where I think they're trying to get 1 million people on board who refuse to pay their energy bill and just boycott the energy companies. 80% expect more shoplifting, and 51% think riots will take place. And 3 in 4 expect people will die of the cold this winter, unable to afford heating. So guys, I don't know that it gets much more worse than this, other than all-out war. This is an economic catastrophe. It's a catastrophe on an individual level and on a national level. And it doesn't seem to be on the cusp of getting better anytime soon. And on that note, we look at this tweet from Wall Street Silver. It says, the economic crisis in Pakistan deepens. They might be headed for a crisis similar to Sri Lanka. What do they have in common? And it notes import dependence, chronic trade deficits, foreign currency borrowing, capital flight, and currency depreciation. I would add that what do they not have in common? What they don't have in common, Sri Lanka doesn't have nuclear weapons. Pakistan does. And so we should be particularly worried when there's talk about a country like Pakistan facing these conditions and being the next Sri Lanka, because that will sweep a new government into power, and we don't know what that government will do. And that government will have nuclear weapons at its disposal. So let's hope that this doesn't happen. Let's hope that things start to get better. But in all likelihood, this energy crisis we see in Europe, it's a global crisis. There's a global energy shortage. There's food shortages. There's an inflation problem. It's striking in every country. It's just hitting some countries harder than others. We're going to see more Sri Lankas Let's hope that it's not here in Pakistan. Let's hope that it doesn't happen on the scale that it looks like it's going to happen. But 6 months from now, the world is going to look a lot different than it looks right now for this very reason. We're not going to see energy and food prices getting better. If anything, we're going to see them get worse. So make sure to pray. Keep your eyes focused on Jesus, because Jesus is the one who will see us all through this. All of this is just a sign that we're setting up. The stage is being set for the 7-year tribulation and the second coming of Jesus Christ. So take hope, put your hope in him. What do you think? Leave your comments below. Make sure to like and share this. And God willing, we'll talk on Monday. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.